10 o'clock at night, August 23, 1944. Sergeant Bob Tompkins is crouched in the mud outside Brest, France, trying not to get killed while inflating a rubber tank. He's 27 years old, 4 deception missions under his belt, and not a single real tank to his name. 2 kilometers away, German anti-tank guns are watching. The tank he's building weighs 93 pounds. A real Sherman weighs 33 tons. This one would collapse if you leaned against it. But from 800 yards out, through German field glasses, it looks like death on treads. Tompkins knows they're being watched. He spotted the German observers earlier, 2 men in a church tower in Guénon, probably artillery spotters, probably calling in coordinates right now. He connects the air compressor. The rubber Sherman starts taking shape. 20 minutes per tank. 15 tanks by dawn. Those are the orders. The Germans have 38,000 troops defending Fortress Brest. The Americans have 3 divisions surrounding the port, but General Patton needs those divisions elsewhere. So the Ghost Army is here instead. 1,100 men with inflatable rubber and a death wish, pretending to be 30,000 soldiers. If it works, they'll tie down German forces while real divisions slip away. If it doesn't work, 1,100 men with carbines and machine guns are about to face a Wehrmacht counterattack. Hit that like button right now if you want to see whether rubber tanks can actually fool Hitler's paratroopers. Because what happens next will blow your mind. The 603rd Camouflage Engineers drove 190 miles through rain to get here. No sleep, no hot food, just orders from 8th Corps. Simulate 2 tank battalions. Make it look real. Do it fast. Tompkins checks his watch. 2:30 in the morning. 11 tanks to go. At 6 a.m., German reconnaissance planes will fly over with cameras. If the tanks look fake from the air, the mission fails. If they look real, German artillery will start dropping 88mm shells on this exact position. Private James Anderson is helping position the next tank. He's an auto mechanic from Virginia. Now he's making fake tank tracks with a bulldozer, carving ruts in the mud to simulate dozens of Shermans moving through the area. The inflation pump jams. Tompkins clears it, starts again. The rubber hull slowly expands. From this distance, it looks absurd. From 800 yards through binoculars in the dark, it looks dangerous. By 3 a.m., they've got 13 tanks inflated. Anderson's creating track patterns. Other men are stringing camouflage netting, arranging bedrolls, making it look like tank crews are sleeping nearby. The sound truck arrives at 3:30. Vinyl recordings, tank engines rumbling, sergeants barking orders. Played just loud enough for German listening posts to hear, but not loud enough to sound artificial. Dawn breaks at 6:12. The Luftwaffe reconnaissance plane appears at 6:47, flying at 3,000 feet. Makes 2 passes. Cameras clicking. Then disappears. By noon, 8th Corps intelligence reports German radio traffic. The enemy is repositioning between 20 and 50 anti-tank guns aimed directly at Tompkins and his rubber Shermans. The deception worked, but now those guns are pointed straight at them. 6 months earlier, the Ghost Army didn't exist. Just an idea in a London office. Major Ralph Ingersoll is staring at reconnaissance photos from North Africa. The British had used dummy tanks and fake supply depots to fool Rommel, the Desert Fox himself. Ingersoll shows the photos to Colonel Billy Harris. We need this for Normandy. The problem is scale. The Allies are planning the largest amphibious invasion in history. 150,000 men hitting 5 beaches. But Hitler has 50 divisions waiting in France. If the Germans figure out where and when the invasion's coming, it's over before it starts. Deception isn't new. George Washington used it at Trenton. But the U.S. Army has never created a unit specifically designed to lie on a battlefield. No training manual, no doctrine, no equipment. They're inventing it from scratch. Harris gets approval in early January. Activate a special troops unit. Mission: deceive the enemy through illusion. Save lives by faking reality. First problem: who do you recruit? Combat soldiers know how to fight. Engineers know how to build. But who knows how to lie convincingly under artillery fire? Harris needs creative minds, artists who understand perspective and shadow, sound engineers who can fake audio, radio operators who can mimic communication patterns, actors who can perform under pressure. Recruitment starts late January. They pull men from existing units, add fresh recruits with unusual skills, fashion designers, painters, photographers, set designers from Broadway. The unit's average IQ is 119, higher than most infantry divisions. Colonel Harry Reeder takes command. He studied tactical innovation. But even he's walking blind. There's almost no literature on battlefield deception. Nobody's done this before. Lieutenant Colonel Clifford Simonson develops the training at Camp Forest, Tennessee. How to inflate a dummy tank in 20 minutes. How to create fake radio traffic that sounds authentic. How to paint unit insignia that will fool reconnaissance. How to become a different division entirely. The equipment arrives in February. Inflatable tanks from Goodyear. Each one weighs under 100 pounds. Can be carried by 4 men. Inflated with portable air compressors. From 500 yards, they look real. From 50 yards, they look ridiculous. The sound equipment is experimental. Mobile trucks with speakers that can project audio 15 miles. Vinyl recordings of tank columns, artillery fire, troop movements, played at night when German listening posts are most active. The third component is radio deception. The signal company will mimic entire divisions. Copy the communication patterns of real units. Use the same call signs, same procedures, same operator quirks. Make German intelligence think they're tracking actual combat divisions. By April, the unit is ready. 1,100 men. 4 subunits. But ready for what exactly? The officers don't know if this will actually work. British deception succeeded in North Africa. But that was desert warfare. Open terrain. Long sight lines. Normandy will be different. Hedgerows, villages. Germans who've been preparing defenses for 4 years. The advance party flies to England on April 10th. Rita and 6 officers. Their job, figure out how to integrate deception into the invasion plan. They have less than 2 months until D-Day. The main force sails on the USS Henry Gibbons in early May, 13 days crossing the Atlantic. They arrive in Bristol on May 15th. 2 weeks before the invasion, Operation Fortitude is already underway. The British are running a massive deception, fake army groups, phantom divisions, all designed to convince Hitler the invasion will hit Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. The Ghost Army will support it, but Reeder faces a critical problem. His men trained in Tennessee, controlled conditions, no enemy, no live fire. Now they'll be operating within artillery range of German guns. If the deception looks fake, the operation fails. If it looks too real, the Germans will attack, and 1,100 men with light weapons can't hold against a determined assault. Reeder needs to know, can his rubber army survive contact with the enemy? June 6, 1944, 6:30 a.m., the Allies hit Normandy beaches. The Ghost Army isn't there. They're still in England, waiting, frustrated. While real soldiers are dying on Omaha and Utah, the deceivers are sitting in Stratford-upon-Avon inflating practice tanks. 2 weeks later, on June 21st, the first Ghost Army detachment crosses the channel. 20 men. One mission, simulate a Mulberry Harbor at night with lights. Draw German artillery away from the real artificial harbors at Arromanches. It almost works too well. So many Allied lights already illuminate the coast that the Ghost Army's contribution is barely noticeable. But it teaches them something critical. German artillery spotters are watching, calculating, waiting for targets. The full unit arrives in France on June 23rd. They bivouac near the beaches. The smell of cordite still hangs in the air. Burned-out tanks litter the hedgerows. This isn't Tennessee anymore. Their first real test comes in July. Operation Brittany. Patton's Third Army is racing east across France. The Germans don't know where. 4 divisions, multiple directions, impossible to track. The Ghost Army will create confusion. They split into 4 task forces, each one simulating a combat team from a different division. 35th Infantry, 80th Infantry, 90th Infantry, 2nd Armored. The plan is elegant. Real divisions will keep moving east while fake divisions turn west and south into Brittany. Each task force is complete. Fake bumper markings, fake shoulder patches, fake radio traffic. Men visit cafes wearing the wrong division insignia. Start conversations. Let slip false information. Hope someone listening is reporting to German intelligence. The operation runs from August 9th through August 12th. 4 days of theater. Radio operators mimic division-level communications. Sound trucks broadcast recorded troop movements. Artists paint unit markings on every vehicle. German intelligence intercepts the radio traffic. Reports 4 American combat teams heading into Brittany. Hitler's commanders reposition forces to counter the threat. Real American divisions slip past and continue east. By the time the Germans realize the Brittany columns are fake, Patton is already approaching Paris. But success creates a new problem. Higher command now believes the Ghost Army can do anything. Every corps commander wants them. Every operation needs deception support. The requests pour in. Most are impossible. Deception requires time, planning, coordination. You can't just inflate tanks and hope the Germans notice. Everything has to be perfect. Radio operators have to match real unit patterns exactly. Sound effects have to be played at precise volumes. Visual displays have to account for German observation posts and aerial reconnaissance. One mistake will expose them. An exposure means death. The men start understanding the stakes. They aren't combat troops, but they're in combat. Every operation brings them closer to German guns. Every deception requires them to draw enemy attention. Private James Anderson writes in his diary, "We're bait." He's right. The Ghost Army's job is to look dangerous. Make the Germans commit resources to counter a threat that doesn't exist. But to look dangerous, they have to position themselves where the Germans can see them, forward observation posts. Artillery range. Sniper distance, the officers try to minimize risk. Post guards. Keep exits clear. Never stay in one position too long. But there's no way to eliminate danger entirely, not when success requires the enemy to believe you're a high-value target. By late August, as Tompkins inflates tanks outside Brest, the unit has completed 5 deception operations. 0 men killed, 18 wounded, all from artillery fire. Random shells not targeted, just bad luck being too close to the front. The men know their luck won't hold forever. Eventually, German intelligence will figure out the pattern. Connect the dots. Realize that certain American units only appear at night, only communicate by radio, never actually attack. When that happens, the Ghost Army will become the target instead of the bait, and rubber tanks don't stop bullets. At Brest, Tompkins watches morning light spread across his inflatable Shermans. Somewhere, German artillery crews are loading shells, adjusting elevation, preparing to destroy what they think is an armored battalion. The Ghost Army has created the perfect illusion. Now they have to survive it. August 25th, 1944, 6 a.m. 8th Corps attacks Fortress Brest. 2nd Infantry Division hits the north. 8th Infantry Division strikes the center. 29th Infantry Division pushes from the south. 75,000 American troops against 38,000 Germans. The Ghost Army has done its job. German intelligence reported American tank battalions threatening both flanks. General Ramke repositioned his 88mm, guns between 20 and 50. Anti-tank weapons now pointed at positions where rubber Shermans had been 12 hours earlier, but Tompkins and Task, Force X already withdrew. They deflated the tanks at 4 a.m., packed them onto trucks, disappeared before the real attack began. Standard procedure. Create the illusion. Vanish before the enemy realizes they've been fooled. The attack doesn't go as planned. Ramke's paratroopers are dug in deeper than intelligence estimated. Bunkers, pillboxes, interlocking fields of fire. The Americans advance 200 yards in 8 hours. Take 300 casualties the first day. 8th Corps intelligence assesses the Ghost Army's contribution. The repositioned German anti-tank guns weakened the center. Not enough to break through, but enough to reduce American tank losses. Company D, 709th Tank Battalion, the same real company that supported Task Force X's deception, reports lighter resistance than expected on the right flank. The deception didn't win the battle, but it tilted the odds. Ramke surrenders Brest on September 19th. 27 days of brutal fighting. 10,000 American casualties. The entire German garrison killed or captured. Colonel Reeder pulls his unit back to base camp near Lesneven. The men need rest. Equipment needs maintenance. Inflatable tanks have tiers. Sound equipment needs repairs. Radio operators need to study new communication patterns, but higher command doesn't give them rest. A new mission comes in September 8th. Operation Bettemburg. Patton is attacking the fortress city of Metz. His line is dangerously thin. A gap exists between attacking units. If the Germans discover it and counterattack, they could cut off an entire American division. The Ghost Army will hold the gap. 1,100 men pretending to be 15,000. This mission is different from Brest. At Brest, they supported a real attack. Made the Germans think the American force was larger than it actually was. At Bettemburg, they are the only American presence in a critical sector. If Germans probe the line, they'll find actors instead of soldiers. Lieutenant Robert Hiller commands the sonic operation. His trucks will position just behind the front line. Play recordings of tank movements, infantry assembling, artillery being positioned. Make the Germans believe a full combat division occupies the gap. The radio deception is even more critical. Signal company operators will mimic an entire division headquarters. generate traffic suggesting battalion movements, supply convoys, reconnaissance patrols, create a complete picture of an active American combat unit. The operation lasts 7 days. September 15th through September 22nd. 1 week of holding empty positions with nothing but sound effects and radio signals. Every night, Hiller's trucks play their recordings. Tank engines, officers shouting orders, soldiers singing, all carefully calibrated. Loud enough for German listening posts 2 kilometers away. Not loud enough to sound artificial. Every day, radio operators transmit hundreds of messages. Routine traffic. Supply requests. Patrol reports, all fake, all following exact protocols that real divisions use. German artillery fires sporadic shells into the sector. Not targeted bombardment. Just harassment fire. Random volleys. The kind you'd send into an occupied position just to keep the enemy nervous. 3 Ghost Army soldiers are wounded during Bettemburg. Shrapnel from 88mm airbursts. They'd been setting up a sonic truck when German artillery opened fire. Pure bad luck. The shells weren't aimed at them specifically, just happened to land close, but the operation succeeds. German reconnaissance doesn't discover the gap. Patton's attack continues. By September 22nd, real American units have moved into the sector. The Ghost Army withdraws. Reader reviews the after-action reports. 2 successful operations, Brittany and Bettemburg. 0 catastrophic failures. 3 dead. 48 wounded. Considering they've been operating within artillery range for 6 weeks, the casualties are remarkably low, but the men are exhausted. Constant movement, no sleep. Living in foxholes. Inflating tanks under German observation. Playing audio recordings while shells fall, transmitting fake radio traffic knowing German intelligence is listening. The psychological strain is worse than physical danger. Combat soldiers know their job, shoot the enemy, take cover, advance when ordered. The Ghost Army's job is to be seen, to draw attention, to make themselves targets without fighting back, and the missions are getting harder. More dangerous. Closer to the front. Higher stakes. In December, they'll face their biggest test yet, the Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's last major offensive in the West, and the Ghost Army will play a critical role in stopping it. December 16th, 1944, 5:30 a.m. German artillery opens fire across a 50-mile front in the Ardennes. 29 divisions, 250,000 men. Hitler's desperate gamble to split the Allied armies. The Ghost Army is in Luxembourg, 60 miles from the initial breakthrough. Far enough to be safe, close enough to help. Within 12 hours, German tanks have punched through American lines. Entire battalions are surrounded. Communications break down. Confusion spreads. Nobody knows where the Germans are or how far they've advanced. General Bradley needs information. He needs reserves. Most critically, he needs to prevent German forces from expanding the breakthrough. Every American division is committed. No reserves exist except the Ghost Army, 1,100 men with inflatable tanks. Bradley's staff proposes Operation Kodak, a radio-only deception. No visual display, no sonic effects. Just fake communications suggesting that 2 full divisions are moving into position south of the breakthrough. The Ghost Army will create phantom reinforcements. Make German intelligence believe American reserves are arriving. Force Hitler's commanders to divert forces to counter a threat that doesn't exist. The mission is extraordinarily dangerous. German forces are advancing. The front line is fluid. Nobody knows where German units actually are. The Ghost Army could stumble into enemy positions while setting up their deception. Radio operators begin transmitting December 19th. They mimic the 75th Infantry Division and the 6th Armored Division, 2 powerful combat units apparently moving toward Bastogne. The fake 75th transmits supply requests, unit movement orders, reconnaissance reports, everything a real division would send while redeploying. Radio operators copy the exact communication style of real operators. The same abbreviations, the same timing patterns. The same operator quirks. The fake 6th Armored sends even more traffic. Tank maintenance reports. Fuel requisitions. Artillery coordination messages. Hundreds of transmissions per day. All suggesting a major armored force preparing to counterattack. German intelligence intercepts everything. Their direction-finding equipment triangulates transmission sources. Plots unit locations. Assesses American strength, and they believe it. German after-action reports mention American reinforcements moving south. 2 divisions. Exactly what the Ghost Army simulated, but simulation carries risks. If German commanders believe 2 American divisions are arriving, they might attack those positions preemptively. Strike before the reinforcements can organize. Radio operators work from trucks parked in frozen fields. Temperatures drop below zero. Equipment malfunctions. Vacuum tubes shatter in the cold. Men transmit with frozen fingers, knowing every message makes them more visible to German direction-finding equipment. The real battle rages 30 miles north. At Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division is surrounded, running low on ammunition. No resupply. No reinforcements. Just orders to hold. Patton is racing north with 3 divisions to break the siege. But he needs time. The Germans have to be confused, delayed, diverted. Operation Kodak provides that delay. German intelligence spends 4 days tracking phantom American divisions, repositioning forces to counter threats that don't exist. By the time they realize the reinforcements are fake, Patton has already reached Bastogne. The siege breaks December 26th. The 101st is relieved. The German offensive stalls. Hitler's gamble has failed. The Ghost Army's contribution is invisible. No newspaper articles. No medals, no recognition. Radio deception doesn't make good photographs. But Bradley knows. Simpson knows. Patton knows. 1,100 men with radio transmitters helped save Bastogne. After Operation Kodak, the Ghost Army returns to regular deception missions. Operation Flaxweiler in January. Operation Landvilliers in February. Each one more refined, more professional, more dangerous. They've learned from experience. Perfected techniques. Understood what works and what doesn't. Visual deception needs good sight lines. Sonic deception needs the right terrain. Radio deception needs perfect timing, but they also understand the cost. Every successful operation means the next one will be harder. German intelligence is learning too, looking for patterns, asking questions. Why do certain American units only appear at night? Why do some divisions generate radio traffic but never attack? Why do armored battalions disappear without leaving destroyed vehicles? Eventually, German analysts will figure it out, connect the deceptions, realize they've been systematically fooled for months. When that happens, the Ghost Army will become Germany's highest priority target. Every resource will focus on finding them, destroying them, making an example of the men who made fools of the Wehrmacht. March 1945 will bring their biggest operation yet, the Rhine crossing. And their closest call with disaster, March 18, 1945. 2 p.m. Colonel Reeder receives orders for Operation Viersen. The Ninth Army is preparing to cross the Rhine River, the last major natural barrier before Germany's industrial heartland. If the crossing fails, the war could drag on for months. The Ghost Army will create the largest deception of the war. Make the Germans believe the crossing will happen at Viersen, 15 miles north of the real crossing site at Rheinberg. This operation requires everything. Visual deception, sonic deception, radio deception, special effects. The full traveling roadshow. They have 4 days to prepare. March 18th through March 21st. Set up positions. Inflate dummy equipment. Create fake supply dumps. String communication wire. Position sonic trucks. Establish radio networks. The scale is massive. Over 600 inflatable vehicles. Tanks. Trucks. Artillery pieces. Tank destroyers. All positioned where German observation posts can see them. All arranged in realistic tactical formations. Sonic Company will play recordings continuously. Tank movements. Construction noise. Troop activity. 24 hours per day, making it sound like an entire army is assembling. Radio operators will simulate 2 corps headquarters. Dozens of battalion and regimental networks. Thousands of transmissions. All suggesting the Ninth Army is preparing to cross at Viersen. The operation goes live March 21st. German artillery responds immediately. Heavy bombardment. 155mm shells. The largest concentration of fire the Ghost Army has ever experienced. 3 men are wounded in the first hour. Shrapnel tears through a radio truck. Equipment destroyed, but the operators keep transmitting. Move to backup positions. Continue the deception. German reconnaissance flights increase. Focke-Wulf 190s photographing the fake army every 6 hours. The Luftwaffe is paying attention. March 23rd, the real crossing begins at Rheinberg. 15 miles south, Churchill tanks with fascinis. Amphibious vehicles. Combat engineers under fire. German resistance at Rheinberg is lighter than expected. Intelligence had deployed forces north to counter the threat at Viersen. The Ghost Army's fake crossing pulled defenders away from the real one. The Ninth Army establishes a bridgehead, pushes inland. Within 48 hours, they've crossed 20,000 men. Ninth Army Commander General William Simpson sends a commendation. The Ghost Army's deception drew German reserves away from the main effort. saved thousands of lives, but the operation cost them. 12 men wounded. More equipment destroyed than any previous mission. German artillery targeted their positions for 3 straight days. The men are exhausted. Operating continuously since March 18th. No sleep, constant bombardment. Working under fire to maintain the illusion, Operation Viersen will be their last major deception. 3 weeks later, Germany will surrender. The war in Europe will end, but in late March, nobody knows that. The Ghost Army prepares for more missions, more deceptions. More nights inflating tanks while artillery falls. They've performed 21 operations. France, Luxembourg, Belgium, Germany fooled Hitler's intelligence services repeatedly. Saved an estimated 15,000 to 30,000 American lives, and nobody knows they exist. May 8, 1945. Germany surrenders. V-Day. The war in Europe is over. The Ghost Army has survived. Final tally, 21 deception operations. 3 men killed, 48 wounded. 0 catastrophic failures. Every mission succeeded at some level, some spectacularly, others marginally. But none were completely exposed. Colonel Reeder assembles the unit May 10th. 1,100 men in a field near Luxembourg. He tells them what happens next. Their records will be classified. All documentation sealed. Equipment destroyed or locked away. The men will be sworn to secrecy. Nobody can discuss their missions. Not with family. Not with other veterans. Not with anyone. The reason is simple. The techniques they developed are too valuable. Inflatable deception. Sonic warfare. Radio manipulation. The Army wants to preserve these methods for future conflicts. The men sign secrecy agreements. Violation means court-martial. They can't even admit they served in the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. If anyone asks, they served in regular combat units. The unit officially disbands June 23rd. Exactly 1 year after arriving in France, the men ship home on the USS General O.H. Ernst. 13 days crossing the Atlantic. The same journey in reverse. Most return to civilian life immediately. Artists go back to art. Engineers to engineering. Fashion designer Bill Blass returns to New York. Painter Ellsworth Kelly to Paris. Photographer Art Kane to magazines. They can't talk about what they did. Can't explain the gap in their service records. At reunions with other veterans, they listen to war stories. Tank battles, infantry assaults. But they can't share their own. Bob Tompkins returns to his family. Tells them he served with an engineering unit in France. Nothing specific, nothing classified. His diary, written in violation of security regulations, goes into a box. Hidden. The secrecy lasts 50 years. In 1996, the Pentagon declassifies the Ghost Army records. Researchers finally access the files. Discover the full story. Rick Beyer, a filmmaker, finds the documentation, interviews surviving veterans, produces a PBS documentary in 2013. The Ghost Army finally becomes public knowledge. But by then, most of the men are dead. They carried the secret their entire lives, died without recognition, without anyone knowing what they accomplished. In 2024, 79 years after the war ended, Congress finally awards the Ghost Army the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honor. 3 surviving veterans attend the ceremony. Seymour Nussenbaum, John Christman, Bernard Bluestein. All over 95 years old, Senator Edward Markey says the soldiers recruited for the Ghost Army were not only men of muscle, they were also men of the mind. But most of the 1,100 men never receive any recognition. They saved thousands of lives, changed the outcome of major battles, helped win the war, and they did it in complete silence. The techniques they developed are still classified. Modern militaries use similar methods. Inflatable decoys, electronic warfare, deception operations, all descended from what 1,100 artists and engineers invented in 1944. The Ghost Army proved something fundamental about warfare. Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't firepower. It's creativity. The Ghost Army left behind one final mystery. How many lives did they actually save? Military historians have debated this for decades. Conservative estimates say 15,000. Optimistic estimates say 30,000. The truth is probably somewhere between. At Brest, German anti-tank guns repositioned away from the main attack. American tank losses were lower than expected. How many tankers survived because of rubber Shermans? Impossible to calculate precisely. At Bastogne, Operation Kodak delayed German forces for 4 critical days. Patton reached the surrounded 101st Airborne just in time. If the Germans hadn't been distracted by phantom divisions, Would Bastogne have fallen? Would thousands more have died? At the Rhine crossing, the Ninth Army faced lighter resistance because defenders moved north. How many soldiers crossed the river because German forces were 15 miles away chasing inflatable tanks? The Ghost Army's weapon was confusion, and confusion doesn't leave body counts. It leaves questions, but the men who served knew the truth. Every successful deception meant fewer American soldiers facing German guns. Every artillery piece repositioned to counter fake threats was one less artillery piece killing real troops. Bob Tompkins died in 2003. His daughter found his diary while cleaning out his house. The tiny notebook he'd carried in violation of security regulations, inside were sketches of inflatable tanks, notes about German observation posts, a record of missions that were supposed to stay secret. Forever James Anderson, the Virginia mechanic who made fake tank tracks with a bulldozer, lived until 2018, 94 years old. He gave one interview before he died. Said the strangest part wasn't the danger, it was the silence. Carrying a secret for 70 years, the last piece of Ghost Army. Equipment, an inflatable Sherman tank, is displayed at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. 93 pounds of rubber that helped win a war they fought without firing, deceived without lying to their own command, saved lives by risking their own, and they did it all in complete silence. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Every like tells YouTube to show this to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We rescue forgotten war stories every week. Real soldiers, real courage, real history. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Texas, Germany, United Kingdom, Australia, Canada. And tell us, did anyone in your family serve in World War II? Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines? What theater, Europe or Pacific? If you're a veteran yourself from any war, any branch, thank you. Tell us your story in the comments. Our community spans the entire globe. You're not just watching, you're keeping these memories alive. Thank you for making sure the Ghost Army doesn't disappear into silence again. These men deserve to be remembered. You're helping make that happen.